Hey, what's up, guys? This is Grayson the Dean 221 Nichols here on the Elite Rounders YouTube channel, and we are here with this week's newest episode of High Stakes Poker. And we got a couple new additions to the table, some of the ones that were there beforehand, but to fill you guys in, we got Phil Hellmuth, the poker brat, who has been just on a complete tear at this table, just sounding like a total baby. It's been fun to watch. A buddy of mine, Jason Kuhn, who actually just showed up. Tom Dwan, one of our favorites, who's just been crushing the table. Brandon Adams, and then not pictured, we also have Chamath P, the angel investor who's been making waves in the poker community recently. So this has been a pretty cool table. It's awesome to see Jason show up. He's one of the best players in the world, and we used to hang out a little bit back in the day. Really nice guy, like just a poker player I really recommend you all try to model yourselves after. Definitely recommend Googling his article on his thought process, one of the more helpful pieces of content that is free out there on poker by a really, really sharp player, just really kind of giving you some insight into how his mind works. So definitely recommend, again, looking up Jason Kuhn's poker mindset article. You should find it with a simple Google. So anyway, to the hand today. I thought this was interesting. Anytime you see Tom Dwan pick up aces, it's always exciting. So let's just jump right into the action. The game is 400-800 with an optional straddle, and Dwan picks up red aces in the big blind, and Brandon Adams picks up ace-king spades here. And at the moment, I believe they're playing five-handed, so this was a recipe for possibly a disaster for Brandon. Brandon opens to 2,500, and he gets to Dwan in the big blind, who chooses to 3-bet to 10,000. I think everything looks super standard here from both of them. And now Brandon has an interesting decision. I think this is something I really want to talk about with you all. I find that people in the poker community as a whole tend to play ace king pretty poorly. Whether they overplay it, some people tend to overplay it and make random bluffs that don't make sense with it. And some people tend to be too careful with it too. I'd say that it errs more towards the side of people overplaying the hand often. For instance, when I saw this hand happen, immediately my brain went, this is a slam dunk spot for Brandon to go ahead and call. He will be in position against an aggressive Tom. He'll be comfortable hitting an ace, a king, or a couple spades, and he'll be well disguised at that point, right? Whereas I think a lot of people who are kind of more button clicky, meaning they don't really know exactly why they are doing what they're doing, might go ahead and re-raise here to around 25, 35,000 with the ace king suited. Not entirely sure what they're doing, because if Dwan 5-bets, what are you doing, right? It's just a nightmare spot to be in. So I definitely like a call here, and I do think that it's important, and I want you guys to all take away from this, the idea when you have ace king, before you decide to re-raise with it, just ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish before you do that? And you'll find that oftentimes it's not going to have you re-raising in spots where you certainly can't stand up to the pressure of a re-raise. So really interesting spot. We'll be talking about hands with involving ace-king quite a bit on the channel, so definitely check that out. I really think this is a big pain point for a lot of players. So again, when you have ace-king, before you re-raise, ask yourself, what am I looking to accomplish? I think that simple conceptual tip will help you guys kind of maneuver through these ace-king spots a little bit better, as opposed to just being like, I have ace-king, I must raise, right? So Brandon did, kind of like I said, he went ahead and called, which I think is great. Flops 2-3-9 rainbow, one spade for Brandon. Pretty innocuous flop. Dwan bets out a c-bet of 15,000, and Brandon calls here. And I think Brandon's call is pretty standard at this point. Tom is obviously very aggressive. We know Tom can have anything from ace-5 to ace-queen to king-jack suited. He really could have so many hands. 6-7 suited. He could have anything. So Brandon's ace-king could very well be good here. So I think the float makes a lot of sense, especially in position. Turn's a pretty great card for Brandon, and a somewhat okay card for Tom. The turn is the 10 of spades, which shouldn't change things too much for Tom, unless Brandon went ahead and hit exactly the 10-10-10, right? So Dwan bets up 40,000, and I think Brandon has an easy call in his hands here as well, assuming that his ace or his king or his spade could be good. So he knows that, at bare minimum, he's looking at like 30% of rivers that should hit him for the winner. And Dwan bets 40,000, again, pretty confident that Brandon's range looks a lot like hands like jacks, queens, right? Probably not kings because he would have re-raised pre-flop, right? But I do think Brandon has a ton of jacks and queens here, and I believe that's what Tom was eyeing and sizing up in particular, based on his sizing and his inevitable river play, which you're about to see as well. So the river's a blank. Brandon misses, and he most likely will be laying it down. But I think the interesting question here is, what does Tom bet for value, right? So the question is again, what does Tom think Brandon has? And if Brandon raised under the gun and then called down on both these spots, right, with the flop and the turn, I think the most logical hand for Brandon to have is something like Jack Jack, and the top of his range would be Queen Queen, right? So I think Dwan kind of felt that way, right? Maybe he could have something like an ace 10 suited, like an ace, but it's not unlikely, right? Because ace 10 of hearts couldn't have that. Ace 10 of diamonds couldn't have that, right? So it would have to be an ace 10 of spades. Can't have that either. So there is really no ace 10 that makes sense for Brandon based on the blockers we see in this hand, right? So it really comes down to him having Jack Jack, Queen Queen for Tom to get value, or he really sneakily played 2-2-3-3-9-9 or got lucky with 10-10. So I like where Tom's head's at a lot. He goes ahead and moves all in here, sizing up exactly Brandon's range of Jack Jack, Queen Queen here, which makes the most sense. And Brandon folds. And I want to leave you guys with this. I think one of the most important things you can do in poker is constantly be ranging your opponents. What does my opponent have, right? Like that is the key. And that will help you determine when to bluff, when to value bet, and how much to bluff and how much to value bet, right? So it all starts with figuring out what your opponents have. So I hope you guys enjoyed this hand. Check us out next week. We will be following again the new episode every week. So Thursday morning, I will see you guys then. Best of luck on the felt this week. Take care, guys.